to the Boosting Achievement. Welcome to the Boosting Achievement. Well, this is the YouTube version of the Boosting Achievement ESL podcast, and I am excited to have a guest today. I have my dear friend, Tan Huynh, all the way from Laos. How are you, Tan?
Hi, Carol. I'm well. I'm a little sleep deprived, but that's okay. I'm excited to be
What
here.
time is it?
Oh, it's only 9, and Saturdays I try to wake up late. It's fine.
Oh no, I messed up your Saturday sleep-in. Well,
Oh no, that's not it.
here in this hemisphere, in this area of the world, here in Central Time Zone, it's 9 at night or 8 at night, and so that's how you and I collaborate. I love it.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
And we have some serious collaboration to do pretty soon with Virtual 18 coming up. Right?
I know that's coming up soon. It's been almost a year.
Yeah, we got some talking to do, so we'll have to do that.
I know. Jess
but
Bell
today,
said. Oh, sorry.
What? Go ahead. What'd Jess say?
No, Jess Bell on Twitter. She says it was her favorite conference of the year she attended last year, and I was like, virtually. I was like, oh. Yeah.
It's an awesome conference. I just told people at Harris County Department of Education here, our county, the new person that took over, that people don't know about it, but we've had almost over 5,000 or almost 5,000 people on the SMORE page.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's awesome.
It was Katie Gardner, not Jess Bell, but it's the same.
Okay, they're both awesome.
Yeah.
I got to meet Katie Gardner this year here in Texas, which was a treat, a total treat. And so, yeah, I got to meet so much of our PLN this year, Tan, and everybody's jealous that I had dinner with you in Boston first there.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Katie is guest posting about how to integrate technology with ELs in the elementary school. And Jess just posted a guest posted an article about talking points, ED, about how you can use the app to communicate in 20 plus languages to families. I was like, oh my God, I wish I had that.
That's fantastic. And you just posted that, didn't you, about using talking points?
Yeah,
didn't that just come out today? Yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic. And I haven't met Jess, but I got to pick Katie's brain, and I was fascinated by what her kindergartners are doing and how much that's what she presented on here in Texas about the technology. And it's like, we all need to raise our bar. If those
it's so integrated, the way she did it. She has like QR codes, she has like virtual reality, augmented reality, and then she has like kids like listening to a prompt by scanning in a code, and then like kids writing, and I was like, yes. I was like, this is not just an article, you need to video this.
You hear things like that and you think, well, sure, at these affluent schools and this, Katie's parents and families aren't like that. It was one of the first things I asked her, and she said, no, she does home visits. Of course, she's so fabulous. She does home visits.
Amazing.
And people have like next to nothing, and she's showing them, how to read with their child at night, even if the parents don't have literacy. But, even if they have just a phone that really doesn't even have a data plan, but they use it when they can get Wi-Fi. She has things that they can be doing at home.
Yes.
So these are students that everybody can do kind of what Katie's doing.
Yes.
Not kind of. Everybody can do what Katie's doing.
Yes.
It's just phenomenal.
She strikes me as a teacher that embodies the idea of like can do. Like there are barriers. We're gonna get over them.
Oh yeah. That's our whole PLN. We have the most awesome
it really
people.
is.
Well, you know what? That brings me to what we're going to talk about today. Is you just put your latest bathroom brief out there. I love your bathroom brief. Yes. Your infographics, Todd, your infographics are so great. And I don't know when that book is coming out that I keep telling you. I know you're writing a book. I know you are. And so, but someday. But right now, we're so fortunate, so fortunate that you share these things with us over Twitter, and for everyone to just go to your website and see these great infographics and print these posters out for their campuses. When did you start doing that?
Oh, I did it like 2 years ago. I started 2 years ago. It was inspired by my college, Dickinson College, where the career counseling office would post, they call it toilet talks or tissue paper, and they would post it in the stalls, and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And they would post like internships and seminars and workshops and job postings and like tips on how to write a resume and tips on how to like avoid destroying your life on social media. And it was like, this is so great. And I was like, wait, I could do this with teachers, because sometimes I just need a captive audience, or just little reminders. And so I think it's great.
It's a perfect timing, because the infographics are so engaging, and for what we do, you're modeling what we need to do with students, which is visuals along with the message. And then we're not struggling with the language, so right there it shows you everybody benefits. So many visual learners out there.
Yes.
And
humans are visual learners.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you do great things too for us. You are having a podcast, you're consulting, you're writing a book. I see all these tweets of like teachers holding up their book and like they're excited about it.
I love it. I'm really loving it. I just came back from Atlanta, Georgia, so I got to meet Diana Delaney. I got to meet Andrea Grove and other people from our PLN, and it's just such a thrill to meet people who you've been collaborating with.
Yes.
And
it's not about them. And it's exciting when you meet them, you're like in person, you get the energy.
Yeah. And then you make more friends, and you convince more people to go on Twitter, of course. Yes. I met Chrissy Driscoll, and she posted the neatest thing, a picture of us, and then some quotes from some things I said. And you're always so honored when people quote you. Yes. And you're like, did I say that? That's great.
Wait, who said that? Wait, me? Oh, I didn't.
So I'm just grateful to everybody in Georgia, and that was just a great 2 days of learning for me too. And Diane Stayer-Fenner was the keynote from one of our book chats.
Yes.
So
Unlocking.
we were thrilled. Yeah, so great. Anyway, you're coming this summer. You're going to be in the States, right?
Yes, I'm working again at the same school at Phillips Andover.
Okay.
Just for a brief session. I'm helping them do their orientation.
So great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, maybe we'll get to see you, I hope, somehow. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about this latest bathroom brief, because it got, like most of your tweets, a gajillion retweets, because it's such a great visual. So I'm going to let you talk, just in case my internet's giving me a little trouble. If you would do me the honor of explaining, because it's why our lessons fail, ELs, but I'll let you talk about it and explain it all. And I'll see if I can get the graphic up for this YouTube Hangout.
Okay.
But if not, we'll embed it later. No, you go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I'll do it.
Okay. Well, I was on a tweet. I was on Twitter, and I saw Todd Finley's tweet that says how lessons fail, just full stop. Mm-hmm. And it's the same format. I was like, oh, how engaging and like how real. I was like, wait, I think I can create one specifically for ELs. And I just drafted it in a day, and then like poof, like all these things started coming up, and I filtered it down to like these 6 points. There are many more, but I think it's just succinct if I just place them there. And it's speaking for too long. 2, not breaking down tasks into steps. 3, teaching without visuals. 4, not teaching with the language, not teaching specific academic language. 5, restricting home language use, and the last one is not differentiating. So all these things, we with our good intentions, when these things are not implemented, students, ELs, have a hard time learning.
Okay. It's such a great visual for each of those. And so I'll definitely embed this in the show notes, and you can find today's show notes at the bit.ly podcast, all in capital letters. You'll find all the shows and all the show notes there. And so, but because we love that you offer this to us to print out and use in our bathrooms, use in our teachers' lounges, but even just on social media, when you're looking at this, let's talk about that first one, speaking for too long. Each one of these, each one of us has to reflect. Today, I know I spoke too long in the staff developments that I did. Talk about that with us.
I think that's of all the things that teachers can do that really struggle to help ELs, that just put barriers up, unintentionally put barriers up, is that they speak for too long. And I'm not saying like don't speak at all, because there are teachers who love to teach and are engaging, but they allow their speech. The more they speak, the less kids learn. And what I'm saying is speak, but just give them pauses. Just stop and simply have them just turn and talk and summarize what they've learned, or say what they thought about what they learned about the topic. For example, like in science class, I have a science teacher, and he's a great teacher, and he has to give direct instruction on different types of forces, because we're doing forces unit in 7th grade. But he stops with kids, and he'll say, okay, this is what I want you. So this is friction. He explains it, and then he stops, shows an image, and then he says, I'm going to give you another image, and I want you to show me where the friction is, and talk to your partner where the friction is. And when he does that, he just gives the kids opportunities to process information, because kids, what kids talk about, they understand, or what kids talk about, they own.
Okay. And I mean, I think it was Kate Kinsella. I can't remember the first time I heard someone say the one doing the speaking is the one doing the thinking. Yes. And the one doing the thinking is the one doing the learning. Yes. Of course. And so that's really profound to me, because we model this in staff development all the time. We're doing QSSA over and over and over again. So a question, give me a signal, I give you a STEM, you signal when you're ready to complete the STEM, they share, and then they assess. And the reason that, you ask people to reflect on, did you really talk? Because I held you accountable, with the randomly calling. Now, because you talked, did it really force you to think? Because you thought you might be called on. So to speak, you have to think to speak. So if I'm the one doing all the speaking, just like you're saying, if I'm doing all of that speaking, then I'm the one.
We just get kids. Yes, if you're doing all the speaking, you're doing all the thinking. We just simply just have kids wait for 30 seconds, or we just stop after we teach something, and for them, just give them 30 seconds and say, what did they learn? Or just creating their own thinking about the topic.
Absolutely. That reflection, that's what's going to cement learning for everyone. So there are all kinds of strategies to do it. And I heard, that 10-2 is a strategy. 10 minutes I talk, 2 minutes you talk. But I've seen more current research that says younger minds are checking out after 8 minutes. Or the average brain, the average brain. So it's not even 10 anymore. You're wasting your breath after 8 minutes, basically.
Because we speak a lot, and we can. There are so many words that come out within 8 minutes. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot, and you can have students time you, and you can have somebody in your class be in charge of, Miss Alva, we need to speak now. I mean, it's been 8 minutes, and that's rough, but that's worthwhile, because you really are wasting your breath to a certain extent after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I think if teachers do nothing else besides they don't change their structure at all, they don't change how they do their lessons, but if they just simply give kids time to stop, they will see a dramatic increase in engagement and retention of information.
Yeah. This is so funny. Every time I talk, you see my face, and every time you talk, you see the infographic inside your Google thing.
Oh, really? Should I switch over?
I don't know. I like to see you every once in a while. But
Shall I stop screen sharing? Should I
no,
stop screen sharing?
no, every once in a while, because people need to see this infographic, but also it's going to be in a podcast. So I think what the things that we're saying are important as well. But I want people to see the power of the infographic. So back and forth, you can go back and forth, and I would be happy with that. So let's talk about the second one. What does
Yes,
that
the second
one say?
It's not breaking tasks into steps. So I see when I go to classes like history classes or science classes or even design classes, teachers will just assign a task and say, go on and do it. I've already taught you the steps, or I already taught you the skills that you need to have to do it. And then the kids just look at the task sheet and are confused on what to do. For example, like a lab report, the teacher would just say, go write a lab report. And then the kids are like, I don't know where to start, because like the language for a lab report is so different than the language we would use in an English essay. And so we need to break down the instructions for some of them. We need to say, okay, so just by listing the different parts or identifying the different parts of an essay or the assignment would be just so helpful.
Absolutely.
I think my image. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just think that science and math come to mind immediately. But then writing, we have a process. There are processes for everything, and so giving kids the steps. And right now, we are here in many districts across the United States assessing kids at this time of year for language growth.
Yes.
And those cohesive devices, which I wish they would just say transition words, because those, first, then, next, the fact that you're breaking steps down for them, you can, capitalize on that even more by showing students when you break down things in your writing, how did you solve that problem? Model how you break things down because they need it. And then let them break things down, how they solved a problem, how they did the lab experiment, first I, then I, next I, finally, blah, blah. But again, just what you're saying is that if we don't break things down, it's going to be very difficult for an English learner to know how to get from start to finish.
Right. It has to be explicit. And this is what it means to teach explicitly. We have an idea as teachers. We know what we're thinking, and we have to make it visible for kids. If not, they're just not going to perform at the highest level that they can. And teachers, I get pushback on this, and they're saying we're over hand-holding kids. It's like, no, I'm giving them the structure, or I'm just making the structure available for them to put in their own ideas. So that, like, for example, for the lab essay, if the science teacher says, like, you're helping the kids too much, and I say, no, I'm just breaking down. First of all, like, there has to be a research question. Like, that's one of the parts of the research of the essay. So we're just saying, here's a research question. You have to create one. Oh, this is what it looks like. Like, kids don't copy it; they create their own. And so the thinking is the same. It's just knowing what they have to do.
It's in the content. I mean, the standard and what they're supposed to learn is there. You're just giving them how to put it together or how to do it to put it together. The learning is still there. So yeah, I can see that. I can totally see that. I like that one. So if we're not breaking things down to steps, I keep thinking, I know immediately when I do this, especially in a training, well, definitely with my English learners, but I learn better with English learners because I teach newcomers. And if you don't break things down, things just don't happen. And so, but I forget with adults in training, I have these activities where you get up, find somebody, a Kagan strategy, high five that person. Now, one of you turn around and change something about your appearance, turn back or something, some icebreaker. And it's so obvious immediately if I have not broken this down for people. Because you have a whole room of adults looking at you like, wait, what? So, and if this doesn't give me buy-in for what you're saying, I now break the steps down and I have them on the PowerPoint. And so, and you see everybody referring back to it, even if it's just 3 or 4 steps or 2 or 3 steps, because everyone benefits from that.
Yes. Adults and kids alike.
And non-ELLs, just, you know, it's not all about language.
And that's what, like, when we look back at the infographic, we can really take out the word ELs and say, like, how lessons fail all kids, because what kid doesn't need explicit steps to be broken down for them? And what what child doesn't can learn by just hearing for 30 minutes or 40 minutes and not like processing that, and not giving that time to process that?
That's just it's really a lot of that. How many times have I told you that? That's not it at all. It's how many opportunities have I given you to interact, to talk about it yourself, to, you know, to experience things. So you're absolutely right. It's letting kids, that's a scaffold that will help you, just like you have here in the infographic. It's going to help you maintain the rigor, is breaking it down into steps.
It's like that pizza. It's like an image of a pizza where like when we order pizzas, they come to us not in a whole pan. It comes to us with the slices. You know, like we aren't expected to shove a whole pizza into our mouth. We can shove a whole pizza slice into our mouth, but not the whole pan.
I heard Nancy Motley say she was going to steal that from you when you guys were in your Google Hangout this week. And I thought, I'm going to steal that too, because that is such a great analogy, is that you can shove a whole pizza into your mouth. Why would you do that? You would break it down. You would break it down. Love it. Love it. Okay, let's go to the next one. So we have speaking for too long, and we reflected on that. Not breaking down the tasks into steps would be a mistake that would have our lessons fail, our English learners. And then the next one, which is teaching without visuals. Talk to us about that one.
I mean, we're visual beings. Like when I say the word flower, you see the word flower in your head. But when I present an image of a flower, you don't have to think about the word flower. You already know that it's a flower. So it's the image there. And so that's why for ELs, when we speak, words come spewing out of our mouths and flood the room. But with images, it anchors the learning. The images don't fly around. It's like not catching butterflies. It's like it's as difficult as catching a butterfly, because words fly around and flutter around. But when we have an image that just stays there for kids, and we can refer to different parts of the image and point to it or label it or circle it or underline it or do something with the image, kids have a visual. Like even as I'm talking to you, I'm referring back to my own infographic that I create, because the visual is there. And what do I look at? I actually look at the titles, but also the images.
I'm trying to screen share it. It won't let me. Will you screen share it once or twice as we're talking about it? Because it's just such a great infographic.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So
what do they say? A picture is worth 1,000 words. And for kids, 1,000 words is really hard to process. One image is not that cognitively difficult to process.
You know, I don't know if you've seen the video of one of my students. His name is Udi, and some people pronounce it Yuri. And this kiddo, he missed some years of formal education, but he came in, he was already 19. He's a newcomer, had no English. And then he came in October. And so it was like all the stacked against him, the cards. But that student, he, one of the things he said is he saw that video of Hersan, and he thought, and he said his teachers were super supportive, and he had supports, right? He was an internally motivated student, but there were conditions that helped him, run with that. And one of the things he said that helped him tremendously, because the kid gained so much English that now he came last year, and now he's doing videos for us in English about how to acquire English. He hit advanced high on our reading because anyway, that's a different story. But Udi, one of the videos he made for me that was very profound was that he said he uses his dictionary because he passed our end of course exams in English for all of them. Some of them he had to retake, but it's only been a year and 6 months or so since he came, or a year and 4 months, and he's already passed all of them. And so his thing is, his teachers, when they teach with visuals and gestures for a student learning English, that is so much more helpful than giving them a dictionary or a translator.
Yes.
Not that they don't need the translator, and they definitely need some kind of translation assistance, but if you just point to chromosomes when you say chromosomes, or point to the solar system when you say solar system, he said, then I don't have to think about it in Spanish. I'm learning it in English.
Yes, with my eyes. Yes.
I mean, I just thought that was so important. And we say it all the time, but to hear a student say it,
it's so impactful. Yes.
Right. We need to listen. And then he talked about how I tug on my ear when I say listen, and point to my chest, to me. And, all those little gestures, come in, sit down, pointing to the chairs and stuff. He said it just makes everything so much easier. And we have kind of a revolving door of newcomers. It doesn't hurt anyone that I continue to do gestures.
Yes.
So yeah, go ahead.
There's a video that I always show with teachers when I do workshops, and it's like a 30-second video of me teaching a 6th grader who came from Japan, who doesn't speak English. She's new to English. And the teacher wanted her to list 10 things that are unsafe in a science class. And the video has me going like this. I'll stop screen sharing.
Okay, yeah, show us what you mean.
It has me going like this, like pointing and going like 10. And I'm counting 10 all the way through my fingers. And I go 10. She's like, oh, okay. So she doesn't even have to think about it.
Did she love it? When you saw the video, had you forgotten that you did that?
Yeah, I was like, yeah. And I was like, when teachers see it, they're like, that's all you have to do?
That's it.
That's all you have to do? Like, yes.
That's it. I came across on my phone, I was cleaning out my phone, and I found videos from the very first day of school. And I had my phone in the back of the classroom, and I'm talking to the group, just like what you're saying, the gestures that I'm using to modeling. This is a name tag. This says Miss Salva. I want you to make a name tag. See, this says Spanish because I'm pointing to myself. I speak Spanish. My family's from Mexico. I'm pointing on the map, Mexico. Yes. Where is your family from? I'm pointing to them. Yes. And when I write, I just like what you're doing. You're just almost sign language, but we don't know sign language. We're just acting out as much as possible.
Valentina has a video on her YouTube where she, like, the first part, she just speaks in
great
language, maybe Hungarian.
Serbian.
Okay. And like she just stands here and she's just talking, and I'm like, what? No. And then she's like, wait. And she says it again in
a pleasant
Serbian,
tone.
and she points. Yeah, and then she goes like this.
Models.
Yes.
Models. She's folding the paper. Yes. So I hear, and papil. I learned the word papil. I mean, like I know a little bit of Serbian just from watching her video one time. And if we can do that, how much English or whatever your target language is, would those students acquire over? I don't know how many days you guys have the students. We have them for 188 days.
About the same.
188 days. If every teacher got a few words of English, or everybody spoke a sentence of academic English, in every class over 888 days,
We could
and
do so
comprehensible
much.
input,
Yes.
it would. Then we started seeing kids can move 1 year. If Yuri can move 4 years because he goes home and does some pre-teaching for himself and all of that, we can all move 1 year of growth.
I think as I'm looking back at the infographic, I'm thinking that learning and teaching is a sensory experience. So like we have kids talk about, it's a sensory experience.
So learning or teaching. I mean,
both.
Of course.
Because
I guess I'm thinking as a teacher, I'm learning. Yes. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, as a teacher, I am teaching and I'm using gestures, but I'm using visuals. As students, they're using gestures and images and talking to understand things better. Because a sensory experience is also talking.
Okay. So by sensory, so explain that more.
By sensory, meaning like the kids either talk about it, they see it, they touch it, they manipulate it in a way, but they see it. Right. Just like when I was doing with my student, my Japanese student, I was showing her visually and moving things. But then like there are kids who are at a more intermediate level and they could just talk. And so talking is so I guess I'm modifying what I'm saying. Yeah. Yes, they're all senses. What I guess I'm saying is learning is a sensory and collaborative experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Vygotsky told us that, right? It's social. Yes. It's social. And then we know from brain research that multiple modalities are going to help kids cement their learning. If I'm talking about it and writing about it and seeing visuals or creating visuals, and there's just things that they really boost everybody's achievement, but they're critical. They're critical for our ELLs to be able to learn at grade level. And this is one that everybody could start doing tomorrow. When you talk about, and you created that anchor chart, every time you talk about that concept, go back to the anchor chart and point to it, and point to the things in the anchor chart or your posters.
Yes.
And it's very powerful. It's very, very powerful. And I wonder if people realize, I've heard a lot of newcomers say that they watch your mouth. Dr. Michelle Izquierdo, who is our newcomer specialist in Sidelets Education, she said a long time ago, they're hanging on your words. You need to face newcomers because they're looking at your mouth. It's helping them see where the words break. Sometimes they're not hearing the break between, especially if we're talking too fast. So they're watching the way your mouth moves, whether they realize it or not.
Yes.
So when you turn away, that really hurts a newer language learner, or any language learner that's hearing words for the first time, whatever your academic language is. So I think there's so many things. Yeah.
So when we say teaching without visuals, it can mean anything. It can be. So when you're saying that, I'm thinking of my mouth. I'm thinking of literally just pointing to my mouth, and when I say the word thank you, there's something that I do with my tongue and my lips, and it's like, so teachers don't have to think about, oh my goodness, I have to go and Google and then get this image and put in a PowerPoint. like no, can you just point to it? Can you just gesture it, or can you just simply draw a rough sketch of it? Something to get words to be cemented, grounded in images.
It's absolutely. Images can be a lot of different things. And like you said, it's sensory. We're interacting with the world around us. And I mean, one of my favorite simulations is where we have everything in Italian, but it's just language. And the only thing we pre-teach is made up of. I'm trying to remember how you say that in Italian, but it's I can't remember. But anyway, we pre-teach that so that when they're looking at all of it, you don't let them speak to each other. There are no visuals, and that nobody can speak in English. When you do let them speak, they can either speak in Italian or they can say blah blah blah. And then it's kind of like it's very much like Valentina's example but now you're experiencing it. So you're having empathy for what a language learner is going through, just like with her video, because then you let them speak to each other and use some native language. And what's very interesting is they did get some cognates, and then working with each other, they can understand even more of it. It's the solar system. So there's things that they can kind of figure out in this paragraph. But then when you put the visuals, Tan, it's like game over. Everybody, you point to the earth when you say terra, you point to the sun when you say sole, and everything becomes so much more clear to when you read the paragraph aloud and use the image of the solar system and the asteroids and rotation, and you can do your hand around like rotate. It's unbelievable.
Even when
Just
teachers
using the
like,
visuals.
yes, even when teachers refuse to or say, I want to talk the whole time, fine, put up images for kids. That'll at least help.
Please.
You know what I mean? Like, fine,
please.
We'll take steps, not a problem. If you want to talk the whole time and that's your thing, okay. Can you just add a few images or lots of images as you're talking?
I would say one more thing about that. I thought I was really smart, and I got some Kahoots to pre-teach concepts for biology and for U.S. history. And this is just such a brilliant idea, is to have the kids play the Kahoot in the ESL classroom so that when they go into there, I'm not teaching the concept. We're just playing a Kahoot and talking about the language that they're going to learn about. But what I didn't think about was, like, of course, I'm scrambling at the last minute. This will be great. Let's do this today. This is called poor planning, because but I learned my lesson, because the Kahoot that I grabbed, it was unusable because it didn't have any images. And so, I mean, we could play it, but that was going to be a slow slog through a lot of language.
Yes.
That if I said, no, we're not doing this today. I took it home. I embedded images in the Kahoot, and the Kahoot is an online multiple choice game for those who don't know. But with the images, then it was like gold the next day, because you could play the Kahoot and stop between each question and look at what those words are. And kids were like, but what is a lipid? I was like, well, I don't know, but it obviously has something to do with fats. Look at this, and you will, you're going to learn about this in biology. And and then there was proteins, and they were making connections to fats and proteins and stuff like that. I was like, this is all great stuff. I want you to go into biology and ask these questions. We played it, and we played it again, and we all learned a little bit about it, but I really just wanted to pre-teach some of the vocabulary. And
with images.
With images, my goodness. And I know I'm spending so much time on images and visuals, but a huge win that we had with unschooled kids was that we had them, just because they were going to go over the tectonic plates in this huge lesson. There's a GLAD strategy out there where you do a whole unit overview, and it's so detailed. You draw it out all in front of the students, and there's a video of one of them. Well, it's beautiful. I was letting my kids watch that, but we stopped it and put butcher paper over the active board, and they traced it. A couple of students traced it, and they labeled it. And I mean, it's lithosphere and all these words. And of course, they had a lot of questions about it. So we were Googling some stuff, but we gave that as a gift to the 8th grade science teacher. And then she taught from it.
Great.
And then the kiddos who made it were so honored. And so they're sitting in, they may not have all the literacy of everybody else, but they knew a lot about that poster. And then they knew, and then the icing on the cake was that one of them had seen an active volcano in Africa and could talk about magma. And it was, they gained literacy quickly if you let them. But the visuals help the entire class of kids who were not ESL students. So anyway,
it's about equality of education.
Absolutely.
Not just the quality of education, but the equality of education, meaning like everyone has equal access to education, even if you don't have the same level of literacy. Let me show you an image. Here you go. Now everyone is on the same level.
Absolutely. We did that today.
It's such a big win.
It is. It
But
is.
an easy
We were
an
at
easy
the,
win.
yeah, visuals and gestures are not, like you said, you might feel overwhelmed, but the more you start looking for them and realizing the power of them for all of your students, then you won't do it any other way. So I was at an equity conference today at Harris County Department of Education, and you're so right. All of this is about equal access.
Yes.
Anyway, so let's move on to the next one, which is not teaching language. And I promise I won't go on and on about that one. Tell us about what you want us to know about not teaching language.
It's just making language explicit, because every single domain has their own way of using language. For example, I remember when I was a sophomore in college, I had to write a lab report, and I described sediment as being sandwiched between two layers. And my professor was like, no, 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 no. We should not use language that way. And I was like, I don't know. You didn't tell me that, and I didn't know because I was never taught that. So when we just use language frames, when we use sentence frames, we sound like the scientists that we want students to be, like the mathematicians, like the designers, like the artists, like the musicians we expect them to talk about, to be. For example, in going back to the lab report, the hypothesis is, this is how we frame it. If blank increases, then this will happen because. So it'll go, if blank, blank, blank increases, then ... will happen because. Now kids fill that out. And if without the language frames, kids just say, I think this, done, full stop. And then they get points taken off, or the criteria for success is they're not reaching that high level because they're not using academic language. And it's so easy by just saying, this is the thinking that we're doing. Here's the language that we're using to do that thinking.
Absolutely.
Fill it in.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it just drove me nuts because I had a person last year telling me, I think we're overdoing it with the sentence stems and the sentence frames. I don't think we need as many as I'm seeing. I'm like, how can you have too many models of academic language around? Because the student who doesn't need it's not going to use it and doesn't, they don't need it.
Yeah.
But
we're not offering to everyone.
As long
we're
as
offering to those who want, yes.
Yeah, as long as everybody sounds like a scholar, as long as everybody's using the academic language in complete sentences, they don't have to use the frame. But some students need it, and it directs thinking.
Yes,
so every one of my students, all of my students, like you said, that word because has me justifying my answer.
Yes.
So and it's one of those can-do statements. Can they do complex sentences? And so I love that word because. Of course, you want that in your frames. It raises the rigor of not just turn and talk, then tell us why, and use these academic terms. Sentence frames, sentence stems, sentence frames, whatever you want to call them, sentence starters, and they can change everything.
Yeah, you're right. Like it's just directing the thinking. We're showing them how to think, but we're not telling them the answers. Yeah. For example, when we use that hypothesis sentence frame, we're not giving you the sentence, the experiment. We're giving you the body parts of it, and you have to flesh it and you have to fill it in. And the kids go, well, okay, so if the size of the airplane increases, then it won't fly as far because the friction, the weight, And so it's like, okay, great. And it's really simple. Right. And I say, teachers, for the teacher who says, well, I think we're overusing it, and I say, great, don't use it. And I say, just get ready to use it don't offer it to everybody all the time. Just be ready to use it when you need it. Because that's a better strategy than saying, just look at the example or just try.
Right.
They don't know the structure. They don't have the structure.
I know. And that in that QSSA, I love that because the STEM is in there. And and so I've heard Nancy walk around classrooms. I just used to always mimic what she did. She used to come to my district as a trainer. And so I would just get as much Nancy Motley as I could get, and then, or Michelle Izquierdo, and then go back and try to be them. And it worked. It worked like magic. And she would say, okay, so I'm going to have you turn and talk to your partner, but I want it to sound like this. I'm going to have you turn and find somebody with similar shoes, but this is what I'm listening for. And the frame is right there. So there's a clear expectation. And then, you know what, that can be your language objective. If that's tied to your content objective, that you've met your language goals there for raising. How do you get buy-in from kids to use the frames?
Oh, we say, well, normally when we talk, we speak in social language. We talk like as if we're playing on the playground, hanging out at lunch. But if you really want to be respected in the community, in an academic community, we don't sound like that. We switch it this way.
Nice.
And so the kids are like, oh, okay, I want to sound like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Give them more credit, because they'll do what the norms of your classroom are if they believe that you are benefiting them in life. And these kind of things open doors for people speaking, you know, more intelligently. And so I think kids can appreciate that, definitely. So let's look at the next one, because we could go on and on about every one of these. That's the only problem, is that I love them all. So restricting, this one, restricting home language use. We can fail, our lessons will fail our English learners if we restrict home language use. Tell us about that.
So I think about this as an analogy. Let's say when in my school, we have Week Without Walls, where we take kids on excursion. So they learn through experiences. And one of the trips is climbing up a mountain safely, climbing into a forest and climbing up a mountain. And the guides that take us.
Oh, you mean you'll really go? You actually go?
Yeah, we and teachers go. Like we all go. Like this is legit. Like inside a jungle. It's awesome.
Oh my gosh. Okay, good.
Kids, so like the guides that take us, they're very experienced and skilled. And so what they have in their backpack are ropes and carabiners, right? They don't have to they can travel without those ropes, but with the ropes, it really helps the kids. Sorry, let me clarify this. So the analogy is that when we go up climbing with the climbers, with the guides in the mountain, and they don't take the ropes out to help kids, they tie it on a tree and the kids grab onto the rope and grab on up, climb on up. When we don't do that for them, we say just try to go up the hill by yourself, and they struggle and there are injuries, and it's not a good thing.
Well, of course.
When students' home language is just like that rope. They carry it inside their bags, and we really don't see it because the guides, they just keep it inside their bags and we don't see it, and he takes it out. Like, whoa, where did you get that? And then he ties it on a tree, and then we climb up. We climb up to that hill. It's the same thing. Kids, we don't realize that the resources and tools the kids carry with them when they enter our class. And what they carry most with them is their language.
Yeah.
And when we say, yes, please use your language inside your class, it helps. It says okay, so if the content doesn't matter, then the language shouldn't. So sorry, if the content is a thing that you worry about, then the language of which they process the content shouldn't be the concern. We want them to communicate in English, but do they have to process it in English as well? If they don't, let's have them use their home languages to understand the content.
Wouldn't that make sense? Like, if I went and was dropped into Russia, but a language that I don't speak, but am I allowed to use what I'm coming in with? Because I'm a thinking person. I don't care if I'm 10 years old, 11 years old, whatever. I have something that I'm bringing in there with me, but I'm thinking about it in my native language. So it's like when we do that simulation with the teachers, and I was telling you the Italian up there, and we tell them no English in here. You can speak in Italian if you can say any of this, or blah, blah, blah. but no native language use. And you can just see when we finally, they get a little frustrated and they're trying, and you got to give them credit. You got to give them credit because they're figuring some stuff out. But when you say, go ahead and use native language, everybody's like, thank you. And then they're telling each other, now you see that word right there? That looks a lot like the word soul. And I know that. And then they're collaborating, and that native language use is, I mean, then everybody can do so much more.
Yes. When we restrict home language use, we welcome only half the kid.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
When we welcome their bodies, but we don't welcome their minds.
Yeah.
Because they know that they just, for example, in 8th grade, we're learning about the UN, and as I'm going into the class to support the kids, the teacher's talking about the UN, and as they're about to do their task, I say, okay, go and look at this in the UN in Chinese, in Korean, in Japanese. Like, it's not a problem. And then when you're ready, come back to us and show us what you understand about the UN in English as much as you can. And the kids too. And like now that it's again using that equality. Like, okay, so it's going back to the idea of equality. Like, okay, so kids don't have the same level of literacy yet as other kids, but what do they have? No, they do have their home language. Let's use it. And now, because they use it, they're at the same level of understanding.
They have
Zhang Hong in Chinese, yes, they do. We just have to realize, we just have to find the resources that they already bring and let them use it.
And I think, especially with newcomers, people are like, well, how am I supposed to find out what they bring? I get that. I get the panic that we don't speak the same language, so it's hard for me to discern what they know. But what we need to keep in mind, I think, that is very important is that every day that child understands, with support, they definitely do, understands more English and will be able to speak more English. So as the year goes on, you're doing different things to get to know the students, and those gifts start to reveal themselves.
Yes.
Every day, more and more. So we all just need to relax and include them as much as possible. Allow that native language. And you don't have to freak out so much about the native language if you have a language objective in the target language that they're going to meet before they leave you.
Yes.
If you have a good language objective, even if it's just to tick it out, if everybody's going to say this, then we're moving English. 188 days, remember, in different classes.
Right.
We'll move the English.
And that goes back to not teaching academic language. So if a teacher says, okay, if a teacher worries about using home language use and says, well, how do I know the student knows what they're saying? Well, okay, so now you go back to the academic language and you say, these are the words I want you to use when you talk about United Nations. So we're not using sentence frame now, we're just giving these word banks. I want you to use the word alliance. I want you to use the word different. I want you to use countries. Now create what you think the UN is based upon what you found in your native language.
Right. The scaffold, you're pulling it back.
Yeah.
and that's how you grow it. That's so great. It's high expectations. It's hard.
Yes.
I get it. I get it. It's very hard because you just feel like, how can they do that? How are they going to be able to do that? You gotta just try and keep.
It's like Paula Gibbons says. She says, high challenge, high support.
High reward.
We keep the standard. Yes. We say, okay, we want them to learn about the UN. We're not going to have them learn about the month of May. We're just going to have them learn about the UN. So we're going to help give a lot of support so they can do that.
That's so great. I love your videos. I love seeing you work with the kids like this. This is the way I fell in love with all that you do when I stumbled upon you on Twitter. And one of the first things I found was you doing this. You know what you were doing? You were doing mechanically inclined, the grocery. Jeff Anderson's stuff in that video is fantastic. Yes.
I don't think I'm surprised people even watch my videos. I just put them on YouTube so I can link them to the blog, and I don't write any description. I'm like, I think they're really poor quality, but I'm surprised.
Who cares? I don't think they're poor quality, but we just want real things. We just want to see real teachers sharing real stuff. I'm about to speak at a conference in April for Abydos, the writing writing training. And Jeff Anderson is also a spotlight speaker. He might be one of the keynotes. So,
Wow.
and I've met him a couple of times because we're both Avados trainers. And so he's so great. Isn't he so great? I just love
And he
it.
breaks it down for kids.
Yeah, he does. He breaks it down for kids. Okay, now I'm getting us really off track. Okay, so we've got one more, and I want to screen share when we talk about it, or maybe you could, here we go. I'll screen share and I'll pull it up because
Okay.
this is of your awesome infographic. This is the last one.
Yes,
So how
not
lessons
differentiating.
fail. Not differentiating is another way that we can fail ELLs or lessons.
Yes.
Tell us
Yes.
a little bit about that one.
So I use the metaphor of art. Let's say that we want our kids to depict love. Right? So some
Okay.
kids will choose to create a video, which is a form of art. Some kids will create a sculpture. Some kids will create a painting, and some kids will do a performance. Yet the same standard, yet the same expectation of depicting the concept of love is being met through all these different ways. So we are differentiating the product. And that's what mainly we can differentiate the process, we can differentiate the content, but for most teachers, we can just differentiate the product for them. So for example, let's say for INS, sorry, that's IB speak for for history. In my middle school, there's a teacher that wants students to write a report about systems in Athens. Now, instead of writing a report in an essay, for this one student, we say, is it possible for the student to create a video with shorter sentences that she writes with images to support her idea that she talks about systems instead of writing a 750 word essay, which she is capable of if we spend a lot of time, but we just want, because she's a complete beginner in English, we recognize that she's right now writing to set sentences, like brief sentences. And so we differentiate the product for her. Yes, there's that option.
It can look a lot of different ways. It could be in her native language, depending if she just got here, and we can help her get that into English. Or we can be a scribe if she can tell us in her language, and then we can write it. But like you said, that might not be practical depending upon, how long this essay is supposed to be. So can we change the work product so that she can still meet the standard and do the work more independently, even as time goes on? So that's, how we differentiate. There's so many different ways. And so I have to keep challenging myself as I could let them do it in the native language.
Yes.
And then it just depends. Is it more important for them to get the science today or concept down? And then we do a little bit of English, or did we do this yesterday? And now we're really working on talking and speaking about it to cement the, and I need to just pull back. It's a constant
differentiating
reevaluation of what your kids can do.
And I think,
go ahead.
And I think when we evaluate what we can do with kids, we realize that we're again going back to that concept of equality.
Yeah.
When we let kids demonstrate in a way that fits them best, we're saying now that everyone can perform. They're performing at the same level, but they're performing in different tasks.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite
we keep going back to that concept.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what?
We keep going back to that concept of equality. Of all these things we're doing is just saying, yes, they can learn it, and they can access the content, and they can perform just like everyone else. Here's how we can do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's never the student when it's not working usually. I mean, I'm saying you never usually, but I mean, there may be something going on with that child in their lives that we don't know about. Yes. But in my classroom, 9 times out of 10, it's not the student, even the student who's acting out or doing whatever. It's generally instruction.
Yes.
And I have to keep think tanking, what am I doing? It might be something different for each child to be equitable. I might need to be doing something different, but that's why I love how we all share, because teachers out there, I've stolen and gotten, even today, so many new ideas from sharing with each other. So it's not like, oh, I'm not a great teacher because I can't figure this out. We don't have enough time to figure everything out on our own. We need to be sharing ideas and
Yes.
sharing what's worked and giving each other feedback. Again, I want to say how much we appreciate everything that you shared, Tan. You're such a hero, and just an edgy hero. We love it.
I appreciate
So
you share as well, Carol,
thanks,
for doing that,
thanks.
for creating all these opportunities for teachers to access book,
I love it. I love it.
blog, podcasts.
Well, I don't know. What do they say? Jack of all trades, master at none. I'm dropping some balls lately. But anyway, we're doing the best we can over here. Let me read these 6 again, because this is some people are only going to be able to hear the audio, but I would encourage you to go to the show notes. And I just want to take that minute too to say thank you to Voice Ed Radio. Voice Ed Canada amplifies our voice, and you're listening to Voice Ed Radio. You can find the show notes at the bit.ly, BA podcast. That's all capital letters. But go to voiceed.ca and look at all their different shows. You can see these shows on demand and other shows. Just Voice Ed Radio, Voice Ed Canada. It's fantastic. So let me read all these 6 before we let you go. If you're listening, here are the 6 ways that our lessons could fail our English learners. 1 is we may be speaking too long. 2 is we are not taking breaks. We're not breaking down the tasks into steps. 3 is we might be teaching without visuals. 4 is that we could be not teaching the language that they need to be successful. 5 is restricting home language use. That would be a mistake. And the last one that you noted for us was if we're not differentiating, our lessons could potentially fail our English learners in a big way. So thank you for creating this infographic and this bathroom brief. That's why it has a gazillion retweets. And we will all use it. I know I'm using it. So thanks very much.
I know that, no worries. I know that some people have retweeted back and saying, I wish this was posted in a positive language way. And I'm thinking, well, 99% of my articles are very positive, but sometimes we just need to switch it to say like, hey, we need to see it in a different way. Instead of like, I could have easily wrote like how lessons support ELs, like things that, but I already have those things. We just tweak it a little bit, and they say, oh, because I think teachers are well-meaning and they have good intentions, but sometimes they realize that things that they're doing are not fully meeting ELs, and I just want to identify that and then like walk away.
Yeah, it's like an exclamation point on this, because that's the real deal. This is the real deal, and I am looking at this, and just like I said, today in my staff development, I know I spoke too long. I could see the people checking out when I was going over 8 or 10 minutes, and when I see this speaking for too long, that kind of grabs me by the shoulders and says, remember, this is huge, Carol. Whereas if I saw it in a positive light, that's wonderful too. I need that. I need that in my life. But every once in a while, you need to wake up and go, look at these things. And this is the real deal. This is the truth. So I appreciate it. I appreciate that very much. And so we can see even more infographics and more awesome blog posts and more videos and everything if we go to empoweringELLs.com, which is your website that in your blog that's fantastic and wonderful. And your Twitter handle, tell us your Twitter handle.
Tan, it's TANELL Classroom.
Tan ELL Classroom. We'll link to all of that in the show notes. We've gone over an hour. I don't know what I'm going to cut, but I'm going to have to cut something for the podcast. maybe not. We'll figure it out.
Your introduction.
We'll figure it out. Yeah. But no, I do appreciate you, Tan, so much as always. Thank you. And thanks for coming on the show. And I hope you're a regular guest. We need you. We need more time.
Thank you. Thank you for all the resources that you're sharing with us.
Absolutely. Okay, we will talk soon. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Okay.
I don't know if I stopped it. I didn't stop it. We go, wait, first, I'm going to stop. Okay, people are still watching, maybe. Okay.